Okay, this is my first Mac video, so we'll see how it goes. It's first time with AutoCAD and with the recording software on a Mac, so forgive me if it goes bad, but it shouldn't go too bad. So let me quickly go through some of the things I covered with some of you in the class, and a couple other things, a couple other tricks on the Mac that you might need to understand in order to move quickly with the Mac. So the first thing, I'll go through a couple things that I've seen happen a lot. And so I want to mention this button down here. This button, which you can't see because it's probably off the recording screen, is something called Infer Constraints. You want to make sure that that is never on. It's on when it's kind of blue. It's not really quite clear. And it's off when it's the gray, sort of black. If it's on and you're drawing, you're going to have all these weird things pop up on the screen, and they are something called constraints, something I'd love to talk to you about, but we're not going to get into it in this course. Something else that you might want to get rid of, this for me is absolutely annoying. So it's actually pretty easy on the Mac. You have what's called the Viewcube button down here. If I click that, it will get rid of that. So I like to have quite a bit of drawing space so I can see what I'm doing. So that's two really important things that you should be paying attention to. And the last one, probably one of the most important, is getting the template file right. So if I go to File, New Drawing, I've been telling people, or I had been telling people, it didn't really matter. I wasn't really paying attention, and we were going with the AutoCAD named plot styles. While this is okay, a lot of the defaults in here tend to be in imperial. So you'll see inches show up, and we don't want that. So make sure we go to AutoCAD ISO, named plot styles. Again, the named plot styles is what we want. But make sure you use the ISO. That's the metric. If you've already done it with the other one, it's not a problem. Just start a new file with this one. Go into your old file, select all the objects, and copy them into the new file. So it's not a big deal. So many of you were at this point, which I have here. I have a running bond wall, I have a ground line and an outline, I have 3 layers. And what we need to do is figure out how to get them to print, right? And how to get it to print black and white. Actually, what we want to do is print to a PDF so we can lay them all out in InDesign. And more than likely, let's say I had a couple of these or more than one of these, right? We're not going to want to print all of these at once. We're going to want to print them individually. And the reason for that is as we lay them out in InDesign, we want much more control of where they are placed, how they're organized, and maybe even changing the scale so we get a sense of hierarchy on the layout page that we're talking about. So the first thing you might want to do is go to layout space. So you'll see a button here. If I click the little down arrow, unfortunately it's not going to be shown. All my dialog boxes are dropping down instead of up, and they're not in the recording screen. But there's options here. So we'll go to the first one called Layout 1. Now, one thing I noticed yesterday when I was helping people is this little bar was sometimes there and sometimes not. And this is something else that's really annoying. It's nice to have it, and we're going to use it in a second, but you may have hit this X and closed it. I spent about 30 minutes trying to find a way to open it through any of the menu commands. Turns out there's no way to do that. What you have to do is use what's called a system variable. So you type in paper space visor, see this here, and that should be set to 1. It's set to 0, so if I just hit 1, it'll bring that little visor back up. So kind of annoying, but once you know it, and hopefully you'll remember it, you can bring it back up anytime that you want. So what I want to do is edit the page set. I had to do a quick edit. Funny story, I actually started my last drawing on the wrong template. So this is the actual template that we need. So when I go to edit page setup here, I'll know because it says millimeters down in here. If it says inches here or here, it means you used the imperial setup. That's not what we want. So make sure that's not what you have when you come here. So when I go to edit page setup, I can try to use, I'll use an A3 because I know at 1 to 20 my single wall will fit on an A3. That stops me from having to do any custom sizes. But I could easily come in here under manage custom size, add an A2 by clicking here and putting all the dimensions in, but I don't need to, so I'm not going to do it. I'm going to use A3. And the other thing I want to do over here is make sure this under name, instead of print as displayed, we're going to use monochrome STB. Now what this does is gives us access to some other plot styles. So you'll see when I try to edit this, and I'm not going to show you how or why you would edit this, you'll see I have one here called Style 1. You'll see Normal uses the object color, meaning whatever layer it is, it's going to print. That's why we're getting colored print. Style 1 will use black to print. Right? So this is why we're going to use monochrome. We could also use like the Autodesk Mono, and you can see that's got much more different plot styles, but here it's not called Style 1. Solid would be the one that we want to use. But for consistency, I'm going to just use monochrome because it seems to make sense. And so I will change that. I will look at everything else to make sure it's all good, and that should do it. Now this is just the edit page setup dialog, right? So this will just allow my paper to size to change, which it did. Allow me to alter this viewport, which I can. If this viewport isn't there, it generates it automatically, but if it's not, all you have to do is type MV for make view and kind of draw this out any size that you want, anywhere within there. Now, what we need to worry about now is the size of the scale. You'll notice it's just like the Windows video I made. This is paper space, and I'm zooming in and out. You can tell by this triangle here. I can get into model space by double clicking, and you'll see this UCS change. And so now I'm actually in model space, and I'm changing the size of that drawing, and I'm changing the scale, but I don't know what the scale is, so you don't want to randomly do that. So what I would do, I'll take my wall that I want to print, and I'll kind of center it in this window. I'll come back out, I'll select the viewport, and then over in properties I'll come down under standard scale and pick 1 to 20. Now all this is a mathematical formula. 1 divided by 20 equals 0.05. So whatever scale I wanted to do, I could do 1 to 18 or 1 to whatever. All I have to do is divide 1 by that second number, get that number, I can type that in, and that's the scale that it'll produce. All right, so it's very simple. In this case, I have it at 1 to 20 scale. I know it is. It's not quite fitting in the window, so I might double click in here and pan, but I'm very cautious not to move my wheel because that will change the scale. I'll double click back out. I'm not getting enough of my ground line, so I'll move the viewport window out. Try to. All right. So now I have my wall at 1 to 20, and this is what it prints out on an A3. Obviously, this is going to be too big for a series of them showing up on an A2. If you're just showing some of your progress, you'll probably want it to be smaller, at about 1 to 50 or so. So what I'll do, just because I know it's not going to work right, but I'll do Command P to print it, and so I can get a preview of it. So it should remember everything from that edit page setup that I've already done, which it does. It shows the A3 and should have everything there, and preview it. More than likely it's going to be in color. In fact, I know it'll probably be in color, but it'll also have this frame and maybe not even preview. There it goes. It's previewing in the background at a huge size. Let me see if I can resize it for the window. There we go. So zoom out. The frame is just too big to see, so it's not, you don't actually see it, but it would be printing, and you can see we're printing in color here. So we're not quite getting what we want yet. So let's go back to AutoCAD. So one thing I normally do is I create at least one layer, I'll do it here, that I call no plot. And I'll give it some color that I know. All right, so the no plot layer, when I have it selected, oh boy, here we go. I want it to not print, so I'm going to come down here and where this plot is, remove this checkbox. And you should at some point have a little icon show up that says, that makes you look like it's not going to print. There it is. It's just too big. So that tells you that that layer is not going to print, which is good. Now I'll select my viewport and change it to that layer. So even if it were in the printable area, it's no longer going to show up because it's on a non-plotting or non-printing layer. Just didn't get my color. The Mac's a little glitchy. That's why I'm not really happy with it, because it doesn't always do what I think I'm telling it to do. Alright, so the next thing we need to do is to get it to print in black. So the easiest way, now that we've set the edit page setup to monochrome, is just to select our layer, come down here and change our plot style, and you'll notice it doesn't change. This is one of two reasons for this. We'll try the first one first. And this is where I don't have the mat completely mastered, is I'm going to not select anything. Let's see if I can do this. I don't think it's actually set, or I might have to save it and reopen it. So I might pause the recording and see if that's true. Okay, so I'm back. I did have to save it and reopen it. It's a glitch that I noticed with you guys yesterday. Not with you guys, with the software. But because I had copied and pasted it into the new template, it would not give me these access to those plot styles that I was looking for. So I had to save it, close AutoCAD, reopen it. That's all I've done is reopened it right to here, come to Brick, and now my style 1 is available. It's irritating, I know, but that's what it is. All right, so now I'm just changing all of these to style 1. So now if I preview, Command P, preview, we should have black. We do. Right, but we don't have line weights yet, and that's because I haven't set them. So let me come back to AutoCAD. This is very simple, same exact way. Select the layer and then change the line weight in the layer. I know the bricks are going to be small because I want the mortar to kind of show up. I know the ground's going to be fairly thick, so just change that to 0.6 or something. And my outline's going to be somewhere in the middle, probably like 0.18. Now when I print and preview, okay, try to shrink this in here. There it is, right? You can see the different line weights. So if I zoom in, don't know how to move around on the Mac, so it gets me in trouble. I can't zoom and pan like I normally would. Anyway, you can hopefully kind of see them. Different line weights. It works, right? And you can adjust those line weights as you wish. Come down here and say save as PDF, not just print or cancel. If I do save as PDF, it'll save that drawing as a PDF, and when I bring it into InDesign, it'll have all those line weights. When it's in InDesign, as I've said before, do not scale these things. Do not do anything except leave it as it is. Change the scale in AutoCAD and then output from the AutoCAD. So the last thing I'm going to talk about real quick is when I was working on some of your computers, I noticed that the updates would come up. Make sure that you're updating to the latest, whatever the update's called on the Mac. I had to update mine 3 times in order to get it to work. So I downloaded AutoCAD 2016. I updated it 3 different times till it finally got up to the latest one. Didn't quite fix everything I would hope it fixed, but it should address most of the fixes there. So that's just about everything. There's probably a lot more tips and tricks that I can cover. Ask some questions on the forum. I'll post them. I've also posted a new wiki. I'll send out an announcement about that, and I'll post this video up there as soon as I can.